Welcome to Jung Love, where we answer questions and interpret dreams from our subscriber community. And to all of you that support us, thank you. Thank you very much. Here's a question from one of our subscribers. My fiancé and I have known each other since we were 17. Neither one of us has really ever dated anyone else. We're both 29 now and due to be married in October. I love him, and he's my best friend. But I find as our wedding date gets closer, I'm having second thoughts. I'm about to commit myself to never being with anyone else ever again, and I can't help wondering what I might be missing. Should I go forward with the marriage despite my worries?
I mean, this is it's a huge crossroads, isn't it, to be at?
Yes.
And I certainly sat with other people in similar circumstances, and it's very, very hard because I think that there is something, frankly, I think about getting some other experience. I think one of the things that can happen if you've been with some other people, and then you're 5 years into your marriage, and you want to pull your hair out, and you're like, "Why did I marry this guy?"
Yeah.
It can be useful to go, okay, well, there was that guy and that didn't work out. And then there was that guy and that didn't work out. And, oh, okay, maybe that's why I'm with this guy. There can be something about that. But also at the same time, if this is a relationship that has worked well for 12 years and you're 29 years old, let's just face it bravely. There's a possibility you might not find someone as suitable again. I mean, this is a real dilemma. And there is no crystal ball.
I think it's very normal to have doubts as the wedding day approaches, no matter what the history of the relationship has been. It's a huge commitment, just huge. And even though this person has been with her fiancé for so many years, the archetypal dimensions and reverberations of actual marriage can set this kind of question and doubts off. The other thing I think I would offer is I often think about, sort of the romance of marriage, the loving nature, the chemistry, all of that. And I also think about you're choosing from a more real world perspective, a life partner, someone with whom you have mutual goals, values, hopes, dreams, someone you really trust, someone you're in a financial partnership with. And it would seem that part of the relationship has worked well. It has longevity.
All of that sounds, of course, very reasonable. If this person was my analysand, I would invite them to relax and tell me what they are fantasizing about. Because our fantasies are often generated from the same place that the dreams come from. So, for instance, as you are pondering marriage, and then you begin to have fantasies of what it might be like with some other person, I would start with really writing that down. What are the fantasies that are running through the back of your mind that are causing you to question this? And consider analyzing the fantasy as if it was a dream. Who is this mystery lover that might be so much better than your partner? What might that symbolize? Does it need to be concretized just because it's a fantasy? Maybe it does, but I think the specific fantasy with as much specificity as possible could give us a sense of what the underlying piece is. The other thing that I think isn't as clear in the question yet, but I suspect would be in real life, is that if you were to introduce this to your fiancé, it may cause the relationship to terminate. And so there's a great cost to this experiment with other people. And I think in the real world, we have to weigh the cost benefit of decisions like that.
Yeah.
Are you willing to give up what at the moment seems like a good relationship of 12 years, good enough to want to get married, to go exploring in this other realm?
Mm.
Perhaps you do, but that's an important, weighty decision to make.
In this question, I'm not hearing so much that this person wants to go exploring or have other relationships, as much as this person is pondering, very understandably, having to forfeit the possibilities. And
Mm-hmm.
that is
Mhm.
always part of a marriage commitment is I am willing and committing to forfeiting other possibilities. And it doesn't mean other relationships necessarily, but spending a year in some foreign country or, all kinds of other possible life opportunities that could pop up in a couple of years or not. And that is part of the commitment is uh, I am willing to foreclose some of those things in order to commit to the priority of our relationship and have the faith will work it out.
Deb, I think you're picking up on this theme of the archetype of decision. That
Yes.
when you commit yourself to something and move forward in your life, that you have to kind of
Mhm.
kill off other possibilities. You have to you have to close
Mhm.
these other doors.
Yep.
And that is a very big deal and requires some mourning, by the way. In other cultures, there's usually a mourning ritual connected with marriage. It looks different in different cultures. We have just the tiniest remnant of it in a bachelor or bachelorette party where
Mhm.
you say goodbye to the life you're leaving behind. So, of course, I'm curious though, and I think Joseph, you really picked up on this well. Like, what are is it just a fantasy that's giving her pause, or are there issues in the relationship? She didn't mention that. But, certainly if this were
Mhm.
someone I knew in my personal life, I'd say, get yourself with a really good therapist and have a process and
Mhm.
talk about your ambivalences. But to recognize that ambivalence at this stage, and Deb, you made this point, is normal.
Yeah.
And that part of moving towards something like a marriage is being willing to let other things go and to give yourself time and room to mourn those things.
That makes perfect sense. And what it made me think of is the pre-Cana meetings that the
Yeah.
Catholic Church offers. And maybe other organizations do as well, but there's a tradition in the Catholic Church of couples going to these kind of group psychoeducation groups. And the staff will ask really hard questions. What are you going to do if this comes up? How would you
Hmm.
handle this situation? What are your mutual values? And it goes on for, several weeks. These are often questions that newlyweds don't ask or affianced couples don't
Right.
ask because they're all caught up in the joy and the excitement about
Yes.
partnering. But to forestall it and be in a situation where you really
Mhm.
need to talk about these meticulous real life dynamics, that might also help you sort out what's important. Also, to decide if there are some really sticky things, as you had alluded to, Lisa, that have to be looked at more deeply that are
Right.
shaking your confidence in the process.
Yeah, I believe in one Native American culture, the night before the wedding, the elders sit with both the bride and the groom separately and tell them all the bad things about marriage and then say, "Do you still want to do it?" But it's very similar what you're saying, Joseph, to pre-Cana is, okay, let's think this through. It's a real acknowledgement again that there's ambivalence in that it's normal.